Great. I see the meeting has started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Global Bizapps Day 2020 powered by D365 Trams. I'm Shalini Goyal. Hope you are all doing well and keeping safe. This session is presented by Lola Graham Brown from United Kingdom. She's an MVP in the category of business applications and a power platform consultant specializing in presenting data with 20 years of experience in teaching how to make Microsoft products behave. She is famous as the agony aunt and is a Lego addict. She considers her tweets to be her own random thoughts. She is passionate about training, solving problems, loving new challenges, and networking. She has worked with huge corporates to the small business, helping them with SharePoint, Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and Office, solving their business needs. Today, she will be talking about the Power Query is taking over. Before handing over the session to her, I'd like to mention that if you have any question, please feel free to drop it in the chat window and we'll take it either during the session, if possible, or during the question answer time towards the end. Thank you once again for joining and enjoy the session. Laura, over to you.
Thank you, Shanley. Okay, so let's share my screen. Okay, so there we go. Power Query is taking over. And so what I'm going to do so let me start with a very short slide about me. Really, it's just to show my Twitter handle, Laura GB. And I also have a blog, Hat Full of Data. And I'm available if you look for Laura Graham Brown. Graham Brown's too long, so it's Laura GB. But if you look for me on LinkedIn or Twitter, you'll find me there. Okay. And I've been doing citizen development work for far too long before Power Platform. Far too much Excel, far too much VBA, far too many teaching and creating and building. So that's been my career. That's been what I've been doing for 20 years. So what is Power Query? Power Query is an awesome tool that has been around for a while. It first appeared in Excel, and so as a way of getting data. So it can get data from lots and lots of different sources. So it can get data from other Excel files, from Access, from Common Data Service, from SQL, all sorts of weird and wonderful forms of files. And we'll show some of those today. So for those of you that remember Excel, and it had this wonderful thing called Power View, and then Power View died along with Silverlight, and it kind of grew into be Power BI. So that's where we all think of Power Query, and that's where it was and Power BI is now 5 years old. Then more recently, it moved into Power Automate, and it has appeared there as a way of connecting to SQL Server. And then more recently, there's a new thing called the Common Data Service Data Flows, and in there it allows you to import data into an entity. So I'm trying to do 4 demos. We'll see how it goes. I have done this session before, and it was a bit of a rush to say the least. So we'll see how we get there. But I am going to try and keep an eye on questions as well. I'm hoping Shanley will interrupt me if there's a good question along the way. So next slide. So what can Power Query do? So the first demo we're going to do in a moment is taking lots of files and making them into one file. Okay. So we've got a folder full of files of one file per day, and we're going to put them into one Excel file in one big table. We're also going to have a look at, that Excel file that somebody manages, and it's in a format that you don't like, and they now want a Power BI report. They want it to look pretty in a Power BI report. They want an interactive report, etc., etc. So we're going to look through a very simple example of that, taking a table and making it into something that you could put into Power BI, and how Power Query can help you do that. We're then going to move on to having a look at how it works. I need some logos in here to say where it's being done. I've just worked out. My apologies. So this is Power Automate. So on the left-hand side there, we've got SQL Server. We've got some data in SQL Server. And how do I use Power Automate to fetch that data and convert it into the little table we have on the right-hand side to be emailed to somebody? Okay, so we'll have a go at doing that as well. And last but not least, we're going to take a public XML file off the float rates website. And that is a XML file that's been published up there. And how do we put that into a CDS entity? Okay. I do have a fifth demo to do if we have time. So, but I haven't got a slide for that because I usually don't have time. So enough slides. Most of the things I have done here, I have done blog posts about, or I have done videos about. On my blog, there is a link to my YouTube channel. But if you can't find what you want there, do feel free to poke me, because I probably know somebody that's already done it, or I will have to go and do the blog post. Right, so let's start with combining all those files. So we're going to start in Excel, and Excel, of course, is in the wrong window. So wait a second, let me just convince it to move. It's really not going to behave today. There we go. So we're in Excel, okay? And on the data ribbon, there is a get data, and we can do get data from file, and I'm going to go from folder. So we click into there. And it thinks about life. And it's asking you where's the folder path. So let's go and browse. And we're just going to quickly walk through my mess of folders. And we're at Global Bizapps. And let's click open. And we're going to click OK on. Nope, sorry. Wanted to go one layer down. Meetings, that's the folder I want. And inside meetings, there aren't any more subfolders. So let's click OK there, and then click OK there. So what it's going to do is it's going to have a look in that folder and see what files it can find. And weirdly, it's not showing correctly. That is really weird. The demo gods are out to get me already. Let's just quickly try that one more time. That is really, really weird that I can't see half that dialog box. I wonder what button I just clicked. I clicked the right button. There was a button in there that said, that will link me to here, that basically said, edit the end, let me think the right word. It said transform, so I clicked transform. There were three buttons down there. One was cancel, one was combine, and one was transform. And I clicked the transform button, which is the one we wanted. Okay, so what that's done is it's given you a Power Query editor. Now the Power Query editor is we've got over here on the left hand side. We've got the content. There is something wrong here. That is not working. Let me see if that's going to work on my other screen. That is having a weird thing on my screen, but it's working on my lower screen. So what I'm just going to do is I am just going to stop sharing, and then I am going to reshare. Okay, for some weird reason, my screen is not behaving. So let's just share my other screen. Okay, and let's move that into that window. Okay, my apologies. So obviously it doesn't like it. For some reason it's misbehaving on my large screen. So in this bottom screen here, so I've got it here on the screen. I've got a whole lot of content. That's the binary files, and then I've got all the details about the files, which is brilliant if you need to get files of a particular age or whatever. But today we're keeping the sample simple, so I am going to click onto this button up here that says Combine Files. And what it's doing is it's showing me the first file. So it's showing me the content. And what I've got here is I've got details about somebody joining and leaving a meeting. It's the old version of Teams meetings. They've updated them since then, but this is a good example of simple data. So I'm going to click OK. And what it does is it writes all this query down the left-hand side for you. It puts into there all the things, these helper queries up here are how to transform the file, all the different things it needs to do here. And what it's got here in the middle, I've got the source name, I've got the full name and what they were doing, and I've got a date timestamp. So I'm going to do some really quick, simple things in Power Query, really simple things to do. So let's go to the user action here. I don't care when they left the meeting. I care they joined the meeting. So what I'm trying to track is who's joined what meetings. So especially when we're all remote and we're trying to keep track of if we have we seen Jack Jenkins on enough days, etc., etc. So the first thing I can do is get rid of all the people that have left, all the left records. So I drop the arrow down, and I untick the left. I just want that they joined, and then I click OK. So now I'm down to here, and you see over here on the right hand side we've got all the steps that have been applied, and this is how Power Query works. So you can see at the top here, that's the original source, that's the original folder, and then it walks through doing hidden files, etc., etc., and then it changes the data types of some things, and it filters, and there's my filtered rows. Well, I don't really care about which file it came from because I've got a nice date column here, so I don't want that column. But I reckon here's a quick hint about Power Query. You want steps that have cogwheels. So if I had gone onto that column, do a right click and go, well, I don't want it, remove column. That now doesn't have a cogwheel. So if I wanted to remove other columns, I can't edit that step easily. I'd have to remove it and redo it. Okay, so but if I go instead of remove columns, I go to choose columns on the home ribbon. There we are, there's my list of columns. I can pick there, and I can pick the columns that I really want. So I don't care about their joined, I just care who joined and what date. I also don't really care what time they joined my meeting. So I'm going to pick that column there, and I'm going to go for, I've got a column there. I can go to the transform ribbon, and on the transform ribbon, there is the date, and I can say, well, I only want the date only. So let's just stick to that. And there we are. I've got my two names. So I've got the full name. I can even rename that column. So call it meeting date. And there we go. I can then, once all that's done, I can go to the home ribbon and I can do close and load. And that's taking me into Power BI. That shouldn't have taken me into Power BI. That should have taken me into Excel. But Excel, of course, is on the wrong window. Let's move that Excel. So there is our Excel. It's got a few issues here. It's got a grey box that shouldn't be there, but hey. And you'll find that there are all the records. Now, for any of you that have done VBA, etc., it takes a lot more code than what we've just had to do. We did that in, it looks like quarter of an hour, but actually it should be shorter than that. So that's brought through that. So that's the very basics versions of Power Query. It's produced all these lovely queries, and I can do a right click on there and go edit to take me back into Power Query should I need to change anything. Okay, and it's a really simple refresh. When more files get added, I do a refresh and they will just get added on. Okay, so that's Excel. Now we're going to move on to looking at an Excel file. Okay, so I'm gonna show you in. So let's go for my OneDrive, oh no, there it is. There's OneDrive. So what I want to do is I now want to show you how we can take an Excel file, which is going to be this one here. So I'm going to open that Excel file in Excel. And hopefully Excel's going to behave a little bit better. There we go. So there we are. We've got a pretty little table. Someone's put in some data. They've put in some totals, but now they want it in Power BI. Okay, this happens to me all the time. So even though I know Excel shouldn't be a data source, a big data source, but it is for lots and lots of companies. So this is on OneDrive, and that's important. I've opened it from OneDrive. So when I go to File, and then I go to Info, there is the path to my file, and I'm going to click Copy Path. That's important. And then I'm going to close it. Right, now because I'm aware of how little time we have in this session to do these things, I've built a mini template. So I've already put the visuals in. I haven't put in any data yet though. Okay, so we're going to add our data. Now, although you might go, oh, there's Excel, we'll click that button. No, please don't. That's Excel local. I'm looking for Excel on the web. So if I go to get data, I've got a web address. So you go for web. And up comes a from web. And you paste in that address that we've just found. And you see on the end there, there's a question mark, web equals 1. We're going to take that out. So we just end with our XLSX. Okay. And then I'm going to click OK on the end. And it's going to show me we've got sheet 1. And there we are. There's our data. So I'll put a tick next to that. If it was clean and in the right format, I could just press load. But we're talking about Power Query, and that's what transform data is about. So let's click transform data. And here's Power Query, and it looks almost identical to the one we've just had. Okay. So down the right hand side here, it's started off with there's the sheet. Let's move into that sheet. It's then decided to promote the headers. Okay. And do some data type changes, which are important. So if we look at our data here, it's really simple. Okay, I've got some columns here. I've also got a total row. I don't want the total row because that's going to skew my data. That's not a team. That's a total of all the teams. So we're going to filter out total. And click OK. Now, if there's any people out there that like a bit of code and like a bit of things up there, I've got the formula bar showing. So on the view ribbon, there's a formula bar tick box, and that's showing me that the code it's written is that the team doesn't equal total. So I can see what code it's written. Then the next bit. So I now want to change this so that I end up with alpha January 25, alpha February 17 as individual rows, so that I can do things with it, because at the moment it's really difficult to do averages and totals and all those kind of things of this data. So I highlight the column team, and then I go to oh, wait a minute, let's get out of that formula. So we click into there, and I'm going to go on the transform, and there's unpivot columns, but I'm going to drop that arrow down, and I don't want to actually unpivot that column. I want to unpivot all the other columns. So I'm going to unpivot other columns. Okay, and so that is giving me the command unpivot other columns. So that means it only named the team column. So the point at which, if you look down through here, we only go up to September's data. When we add in October, we won't have named that column. So this is not using any named columns. We're being really careful. And I can then come into here and I can go, well, that's how many contracts. Let's spell that right. How many contracts were won in that month. And this I'm going to call month. But wait a minute, maybe I don't want the month. Maybe I actually want a date from this month. So I want to convert that into a date. Now, the easy way to do that is to go to the add column. And there is this awesome feature and that's available in the Excel and Power BI version. It's not yet in the version I'm going to show you in a moment, but they're working on it. So column from examples, I can click that down and I can go from selection. So I've selected the right column and I can go from selection. Okay, so oops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted that one to go up to there so I could see questions if any appeared. You like a little bit of code? I'll show you a bit more code in a minute, I promise. Okay, so here it goes. So I've got my row here and I've got column 1. Okay, appeared. So that was when I pressed column from examples from selection and it gives you this. So this is going to be the date. Okay, and I'm going to say this dates are this year. So I want to mark that date as the 1st of that month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 01 hyphen Jan hyphen 2020. Okay, and press return. And if you look, what it does is it calculates, so it works out a formula from the examples you give it. Okay, so it's put into there 01, put the month in, and then put hyphen 2020 after it. And if I click OK on there you are, I get my merged column, which is my text combined, but it still thinks it's text. Really important part out of Power Query is to make sure you've got the right data types at the end here. So I'm going to click onto there and I'm going to say that's a date. So that's clicking on that little corner and then clicking date. Okay, so that is my query done. I'm happy with all of that. I'm happy with all the names and everything. And I can go to the home tab and do close and apply. Now, I haven't got a huge amount of data here, but if you had more than 1,000 rows, it doesn't get loaded into Power Query until you press close and apply. And then it comes into here. Oh, I didn't rename the sheet 1. I probably should have. And it loads all the data. So however many rows of data that is, this time this is a tiny data set. So now I've got my my parts here ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this slicer visual in the top left here. Or maybe I'm not. There we go, Power BI. And I'm going to put that in as I've set that up to be for the team. And there we are. There's my 4 teams, and that acts as a filter. In my card down here, I'm going to put in how many contracts. So I'm just going to click on the contracts button there. And there you are. I've got 543 contracts. If I click into my chart for a moment, I'm going to, across the bottom, I'm going to put the date. And up the side, I'm going to put the number of contracts. And if we wanted to add some more color into this, I could, in the legend, bring in which team they are, or perhaps not. And there we are. I can click on to my different teams over here on the filter, and there we are. It all gets filtered through. I can pick a section, and there we are. We can see that the alpha team in June did that much, or we can pick colors. So you've got all the flexibility of Power BI. Okay, so that's Excel's version of Power Query, and that was Power BI's version of Power Query. So we're going to move on now to have a look at some of the newer kids on the block. So let me switch to my browser, and Oh, I'm in run history. That's not where I expected. Oh no, I am where I'm expected to be. So let's go have a look at what Power Query can do. Okay, not Power Query, Power Automate. Too many power things. Power Automate can do. So if I get a new, and I'm going to go for, so this could be a scheduled one. So we could go scheduled. Let's put in email expenses. And we're going to, doesn't matter where it starts from, and we're going to go for in the week, and I want it on a Monday morning. There we go. And I'm going to click create. So what I've got behind the scenes is I've got a SQL Server database sitting in my Azure, which by another app collects my expenses data. So choose an action. Let's put into here Power Query. Now, I'm not an SQL writer. Let's pretend that, okay? So I want to be able to manipulate my data without having to write some SQL. So I've got transform data using Power Query, and I don't know if you noticed in there, it said premium. Sorry, guys, this one you do need a license for, okay? So we can go create, right, the other thing is the first time you connect, it's going to ask you to log into your database. I don't trust the demo gods to let me log out and log in again, so I'm keeping my login, okay? But trust me, it asks you to log in. Press create query, and what it does is it will go Laura is the Excel queen. Yeah, Excel has been my career. Nice. Can it fill down and format? So wait a second. Let me just have a quick look at those questions just while we're waiting for this thing to load. Oh, have we got Brian Dang in the room? There they are. That's just to make me nervous. So yeah, and I don't think I am the Excel queen, but I have been doing a lot of stuff in Excel for a very long time. So here we are in Power Query. And there we go. We can click on expenses, and that will show me the data that I've got. So I've got oh yeah, none of us trust the demo gods. No, none of us do. But I have been known to bring down Azure Western Europe. So I have issue with the demo gods. Here's my data. Okay, it's a really simple little table. So these are all the outstanding Power Query. So what you really should do is get your best friend in the world, if you are a data person, is your DBA. Find out their favorite biscuits now, okay? Because and send them a Christmas card, a Diwali card, a Thanksgiving card, wherever you are in the world, send them the right cards. Because they will be your best friends. So if I could click on one of these, because these are my queries that have been written, if I was going for sales, you want to go for a query that's got the right columns in the right format in the right places, filtered in the right way. It'll save you time. So anyway, transform data. So that's transform data means Power Query. So we click on there, and it will take us into Power Query. So here we are in Power Query. We've got a whole set of data in here. Now, nulls. Oh my goodness. I have the number of hours I've spent in my life handling nulls. So we're going to deal with nulls first. So I'm going to highlight the miles column and the amount column. And I just say, I don't want nulls. I just want to replace them with zeros because it makes addition and everything so much easier later on. So I click those two, and look, we've got the same kind of ribbons as before. You have a number of choices here. So I've got transform. That means make a change to the columns, but leave the columns. And I've got an add column, which we will have a look at in a moment. So transform. We're going to highlight those two columns, and I want to replace all the nulls with zeros. So if we have a quick look, there's the replace values in there. The value to find is null. It's in lowercase and it's a number, weirdly. We're going to replace that with 0. And we're going to click OK. So there we are. We've got rid of our nulls. Now the next part is, okay, so that's actual miles. Okay. Here in the UK, we still use miles. We still refuse to accept the fact there's kilometers. And I'm not going to pay people in miles. I'm going to pay them amount per mile. So I want to times that by 0.4. And I might as well do it to the same column. So we're going to stay on the transform, and there is number column, and there is standard. Okay, so this is just a shrunk down ribbon. So under standard, we're going to go to multiply. Now in the UK, you can get away with 40p per mile if it's in your own car and you've got a nice bus. And so I'm going to times it by 0.4. And there you are. You can see the formula at the top there that is each times 0.4. So that's how it's doing it. Okay. So there's my expense. So there's the amount of money you're going to get for each of those expenses. Well, we're going to add those two together. Okay. So I highlight both of them. Now this time I'm going to add them together, but I'm going to put them in a separate column. So I go to the add column, and oh look, Microsoft have used the same button twice. It's very confusing sometimes. Then we can use that button and we can go add. And there you are, it's done it over here. Now, the shortcuts for doing those things are brilliant, but they name the columns for you sometimes. And if you don't want that name, have a look in the code at the top here, the formula at the top. It is, you can go in there, I could go in there and call it total if that helps. Okay. So once all that's done, okay, I can then go, right, fine, I like that, that's working, but I don't need all the different rows. I just need to know how much someone spent on travel and how a hotel and things. So I want it to be grouped. So I'm going to go back to the transform ribbon, and there's a group by. So let's click on there, and we're going to group by. Now it picked the column I had highlighted. That doesn't make sense. So let's go for expense type. And I want to sum the total. So I'm going to call that total as well. It doesn't mind. And then we're going to click OK. So there we are. We've got our little summary here. Now, one thing I didn't do in the last two ones, and I should have, by the way, is I'll show you again on the other side. These steps, you can end up with lots and lots of steps in here. Okay, so I've got my insert addition, I've got my multiplied. I can right click on one of those and I can rename. So convert miles. Okay. And then I can go in and I can rename all those things. I can also do a right click and go to properties and 0.4 per mile. Okay, so there's my little comment about it, and I can click OK. And if you look, there's a little I to show that's there. Okay, so you can do that to all your steps, make them work so that you are seeing it there. And for those of you that do like a little bit of code, if I do a right click on here, no, it's not going to let me do it on there. They move these things, I'm sure they do. It's there. So in other places, I can do it on a right click. Here I can't. There's an advanced editor. And on that advanced editor, there is the M code. M code is not friendly. Nobody likes writing M code apart from Chris Webb. And he wrote the book on it, so therefore he has to like it. And I have to confess, I like writing some of it, but some of it is horrible. So, but if you look, there's that comment I added in as a normal comment. Okay, so there are ways of getting through this. If anybody's interested in learning how to write M code, nab me and I'll point you in the right directions to point to the right people. So there we are. We've got our little summary there, and I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to press create. So that's got me my data. Well, let's prove that actually we can do something with that data, and let's put in a new step. And what I'm going to do here is I want to put it into a format that I can use in an email. And the one format I can use in an email is a HTML table. So we're going to click into there. And from here, I've turned on the latest the experimental editing in Power Automate. So I get these little buttons here, or I press Control Space Bar for it to give me the dynamic. And there we go. We can click onto there. Let's put another new step. And this one, let's Office 365. That's the one I want. And let's put into there, send an email. And let's go for V2, because by default V2 is HTML. So I can then put into there lauragb.demo@outlook.com. Don't bother ever sending it an email because I don't do anything with it. It is literally for these demos. So expenses report. Now that also could be a use data from one of your steps or something. And then I'm going to just put into here expenses. I could do all sorts of formatting and things, but that's not what I'm going to do. I can click that button there to do dynamic content. And there we are, create HTML table. There's the output. And there we go, put it into there. And let's click save. Now, oh, a 2 is required. Oh, it's being stupid. It is being stupid. There we go. Now it's happy. It really doesn't like me, that one. It does that occasionally. Okay. And then we're going to click test. And I'll perform the trigger action. Let's click test. Now, that's a recurrence. You can force it to run now just to prove it works. And there we go. Green ticks all the way down. That's what we like. And there's one I tried earlier. But there, hopefully, there we go. There's my email. I'm assuming that is the one I've just sent because it's the right time. And there they've come through. Okay. So, oh, there's a quizzy leaderboard. Oh, go and take the no, don't leave this session. Go and take the quiz. Do that in a minute. Okay. But now I'm very tempted. No, it's all right. I won't. I promise. So inside here we can do it. Now the limitation of Power Query inside of Power Automate is it can only connect up to SQL Server. I am hoping that we get more eventually, but we shall see. We shall see. I don't know how high up that is on the priority list for the Power Query, for the Power Automate team. So we've looked at Excel, we've looked at Power BI. Let's move on to one other one, which is importing data. So we're going to let me just go into Power Apps for a moment and into a solution. See, I've got you got your own solution. And let's have a look in currency rates. So this is an entity that I've created in the Common Data Service. And obviously it's not going to play ball very quickly. And let me just so we've got some fields in here. It's not complicated. It's not a complicated one here, but I highly recommend you build your entity for this one. I like the Lego person. That's cool. I highly recommend you create the entity. You can use a data flow that will build an entity for you, but it builds it badly. I tell you now. So I've got my 2 fields here. I'm sure there is a way of custom. There we go. There's my view. So there's my 2 fields. I've got a currency and I've got an exchange rate. Now I've got a website here that has got on it also all the data. Okay, so it's got on it the rates I want to do. It updates daily, so therefore I want to use that. Okay, so let's come back into here. Let me prove there's no data in it. There is data in it, bother. We're going to prove there's no data in it in a second, but I am going to go back to my solution. My apologies, I haven't cleared it. So let's go back into my solution. Let's run this flow. See, I wrote a flow to do this. And then we will prove there's nothing in there before I actually run the, let's run that. Run the flow. It'll take a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to back into here, and under data in Power Apps, you'll see there is data flows. Weirdly, it's not there in other places. When in Power Automate, there's a data section but no data flows, which is slightly weird. So into here, I'm going to write a new data flow. And into here, we're going to put import rates. And I'm going to click create. And so where we're getting our data from here, okay, is if you see it's got an XML end on the end. So we're going to have to extract it out of an XML file. So into here, we're going to pick. So these are all the different data types you can go and get. You can go and get things from, okay, and they are all sorts of things from web pages. So I probably could do a web page as well. Blank query, you can copy and paste them in, all sorts of things. You know that code I just showed you, that whole page of, I could have copied that code and put it into here, and it would have worked. So we're going to go to XML, and we're going to put into here. That's the wrong path. That's the Excel file. Let's not go there. Let's go and pick this file and copy that. Nope. Copy, not paste, Laura. And we're going to paste it into there. Okay. Now I've done this one before because, hey, I tested it before. I test my demos. So it's got my connection, but I've basically put in it's a website I don't have to log into, so therefore it's anonymous. I'll do a video of me actually logging in, but there the demo gods don't get a chance because I can always redo it. So this is walking through an XML file. Now XML files are bizarre in their own delightful way. And so an XML file is built up of a structure, and to walk through it, you have to work out which bits to expand. Now I've played with this, okay, and so there is a value column there, and if I press the expand button at the top, it asks me, well, what do I want to expand to? Well, I actually, in this case, I just want to expand the value. So I end up with a column called value.value, and that's because I forgot to untick the thing at the bottom, but that's fine. So I've got a set of data here. Now the first 8 rows are the header of that web page. So they are all the bits that are up here somewhere. They'll be up in the top half of this web page. Okay, so I don't want those 8 rows. And this is where you remove rows is the only way to do it, really. So I'm going to click remove rows, and I'm going to go remove top rows, and I want to get rid of 8 of them. And so there we are. We can see our steps here. Be aware, if you press cross and remove a row, by the way, in any version of Power Query, there is no undo, even in Excel's version, which is kind of slightly weird, but it's not there. So then I've got a value column here, and I'm going to pick on that one as well, because I've walked through this enough that I know what I want. And in here, I don't want namespace and I don't want attributes. I just want name and value. And there you are. You end up with these whole section of parts in here. And so out of here, I've got, there is a target currency. So there's my US dollars, and there's the exchange rate. So they're the 2 columns. They're the 2 bits of data I want, and I want them in columns in a moment. So we're going to come into here. I'm going to click on the value name and say, I just want the exchange rate and the target currency. So let's click OK on there. I now want to pivot these things, okay? But actually, what I want is a way of these two being attached to each other. So what I needed to do was actually add an index column a couple of steps before. So I'm going to go back up to my remove top rows, back to here, and go, do you know what, if I put an index in now, that would fix my problem. So this is yes, everybody could turn around and say that I should have got that ordered right, but we can add a step in. Okay, so I'm going to add a column, and I'm going to go for an index column, and I'm always go from 1 because 0 scares me. And it warns you, you're going to insert a step. You weren't on the last step. Are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I want to do that. But always make sure if that message comes up that you know that you've thought about it and really do you want to do it there. So there's my index column. Now when I go down to my filtered rows, you'll see, look, they've all got 1, 1, 2, 2, so they're paired together. So when I click on, so now I'm going to reduce it down to just the 3 columns I want. I want index, value, and value name. Great naming. Don't worry, we'll fix that in a second. So we're going to go for, on the home ribbon, oh my goodness, I'm running out of time. We're going to go to choose columns. And we're going to untick that, and I'm going to pick in there that I want the ones that have got loads of values on them and the index. And we're going to click OK. And then the next thing we're going to do is I want these to be column headings. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite of we did a moment ago, which was unpivot. We're now going to pivot. So on the transform, pick the column that you want to be the column headings and go pivot column. And it asks you, well, which is the value one? And funnily enough, it's the one that's got value in it 3 times. So click OK. And one of the nice things about here is, there we are, I've got these things in here, and that's a pivot. So you can do all sorts of pivoting, and it can include text in the middle. So the one thing I would make sure, so I've got my index, I've got my currency. To be nice, I would make sure these have got the right data types. You can actually get away with them not having the right data types in here. I can't see AB. There's ABC. So that's ABC. And see, it's got change column type is the step that's appeared there. When I go to do another one, okay, decimal number, you'll see it just adds it onto that step. So do them together. Make sure you reduce the number of steps you've got here. And then we click next. So I've got my columns sorted. It then says, do you want a new table? No, I want to load to an existing. And table and entity, they kind of interchange. Probably that isn't right, but that's the way I think of it. And then I'm going to go for, now, finding your entity is another challenge. All of your own. They will have a prefix, so make sure you've got the right one. Make sure you're looking for the right thing. Okay, and then it asks you, well, there's the source. Where's it going? So I've got my target currency is going to currency, and my exchange rate is going to there. But before I click next, I am just going to go to my flow. I'm just going to go and prove to you that they haven't been put in there. I just want to go and check that it is empty before I run it. Oh, thank you for all of the links. Awesome. Hey, I'm presenting at this conference again, because if you're going to put all my links up there, that is it. To tell you the truth, nab me on any of those. I will respond. I respond better to those than I respond to emails, by the way. Don't tell my boss. We're going to go into my solutions and into my entity. By the way, post any questions, because this is possibly going to take a moment so I can answer any questions. Are there any questions I've missed? I don't think there are.
Laura.
Yeah,
Hi, Shalini. So there are no questions over. I'll give you a quick time check. Like we have 10 minutes left.
brilliant, brilliant. Okay, that's cool. Let's see if we've got any data left in here. Let's hope my flow worked. Yay, no records found. Okay, so there's no data in there at the minute. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, here's my Power Query there. I'm going to click next. For those of you that like the idea of Power Query, do go and find Chris Webb. He has a lovely blog, and it asks me whether I want to refresh manually. I could do it automatically, or I could do it manual. If you do it automatically, I can turn around and say, well, let's do it. I only care once a week on a Saturday at 10 o'clock. That sounds like a good time. Press create. And off it will go and run. So all of these things, the Power Queries, so this is the one place where Power Query writes data. Everywhere else, it just goes and fetches it and provides it for you. So your data flow is currently refreshing. And if I can remember what I called it, that would help. There we are, import rates. It's this one here. So there you are, it's in progress. And if you can see here, I did one earlier into a different entity, but here we are. We've got one set up, and that was going to run daily. So as you can see, it refreshed at 7:30, and it's due to refresh tomorrow at 7:30. So you can set these up. Okay. Now the code that's inside, I'm just going to. There you are. It's run. Okay. So let's go and have a look in here, and let's just do a refresh of that page. So this is a brilliant way to, if you've got a Power App that you need to be able to load things into, and I've actually had to do this one for business. They wanted exchange rates, and they wanted to know the exchange rates would be valid. And there we are. I've added in the exchange rates, and that's loaded just now. Okay, so this isn't a particularly good view because it doesn't show the exchange rate. I haven't set the views up right, but this shows that they're there. Okay, so